Thanks so much for joining us here on ABC24 Plus. I am Chief Meteorologist Trevor Birchett. We have a lot to talk about today, including heavy thunderstorms that we saw yesterday that actually caused a little bit of damage in parts of the Mid-South. We had very heavy rain in at least a couple of neighborhoods. It didn't happen everywhere. Some neighborhoods were completely sunny all day long, but there were some neighborhoods that they saw some pretty heavy thunderstorms yesterday. We had some flooding and even some wind damage. I want to start out with what happened yesterday. This is some damage from near Getwell and Shelby Drive. Power poles down due to some high winds. We also had some flash flooding that was reported in Covington. I'm not sure if we'll have that video, but we do have the video there. Again, that was some trees, power lines down, and that was there in southeast Memphis. There we go. So that's going to be at Getwell Road and Shelby Drive. You see it was about 13 or 14 power poles that were snapped and bent over due to the high wind gusts that we saw in that area from the thunderstorm that we saw. At one point, we had about 8,000 customers without power in southeast Memphis, but a lot of those outages have been repaired as they're out there kind of getting the power poles cleaned up. Now, it seems like this damage from yesterday was a result of a downburst. Now, we've seen a couple of these. We saw one in South Haven on Sunday that caused some damage along State Line Road near Interstate 55. But I do think what we saw yesterday in southeast Memphis was also a downburst. Now, we've talked about this a little bit in the past week, but just to kind of explain it to you, what happens is, of course, to get a thunderstorm to grow, it has to rise up. So winds are actually going upward inside the thunderstorm, and that helps to build the thunderstorm up. If you've ever seen in the summertime, those summertime clouds kind of bubble straight up and build that thundercloud. That's because there's rising motion within the storm. Well, what happens is what comes up must eventually come down. And as the storm starts to collapse, all of that wind that's built up eventually comes downward, and that causes all the wind to rush straight down out of the storm, and then it hits the ground and spreads out. So what happens is, over a really small area, we can get really high wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. Now, these are really hard to predict because you don't really see them on radar until they happen, until the wind is already fanning out at the surface. But again, what we are seeing likely in some of these summer storms is a downburst. It's really typical in those small summertime cells because they build up so quickly and then they come down so quickly. So this is probably what happened there in southeast Memphis yesterday that took down those power poles, and what happened in South Haven on Sunday with that little thunderstorm. These downbursts can be fierce. They can create a really small area of wind, 50 to 60 miles an hour. And as we've seen, that can cause damage. It was not a tornado. It does not take a tornado to cause damage. We can see wind that can do just as much damage as a tornado. And these summertime storms, they can be fierce. So just keep that in mind in the summer. When you get those heavy thunderstorms, high winds are always a concern. It's usually not over a large area, but we can still see winds that are pretty fierce in a small area. Of course, like we talked about, we also saw some very heavy rain. And just to show you how isolated it was yesterday, places like President's Island, Fraser, Raleigh, Bartlett did not see a drop of rain. But we had this thunderstorm that just kind of set up shop right over East Memphis and into Cordova, and that produced some very heavy rain and flash flooding. Cordova picked up about an inch of rain, Germantown about an inch and a half, and then the National Weather Service site, which is off of Walnut Grove, actually picked up 2.5 inches of rain in just about 2 hours. So that did lead to some flooding on the roadways. We also saw some of that down on Mount Moriah, a very typical spot that seems to flood all the time, right there near Mount Moriah and going up toward 385 and 240, right there at that junction. So we did have some flooding there. Again, usually these summer storms don't last long, but flooding and high wind gusts, always a concern. We do still have a weather impact alert. We want to try to give you that early heads up to the extreme heat that is going to continue. Some of us got a break from the heat yesterday because of those thunderstorms, but we might not be as lucky going into next week. As far as your Friday goes, we are pretty dry. There could be a couple of those pop-up storms, but overall rain chances looking pretty low. That means the heat index is still going to be high. Heat index near 105. There is a slight pop-up storm chance for Friday and Saturday. It won't happen everywhere, but some areas could see more of those pop-up heavy thunderstorms over the next couple of days. By next week, though, our rain chances really come down. I think we are looking mostly dry next week and very hot. And of course, no rain to cool us down means the temperatures are just going to climb even higher. This is a look at your 7-day forecast here. As we look at Saturday, there is a slight chance of some thunderstorms, especially if you live in North Mississippi. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I also think we see a little bit more cloud cover on Saturday, and that could help those temperatures to stay a little bit lower than they have been. Still very hot on Saturday, a high of 92 degrees. But at least a chance of some isolated pop-up thunderstorms that could cool you down. Sunday, I think we're mostly dry. That kind of starts our dry weather pattern. And as we get into the dry weather pattern, we're going to see the temperatures come up. So Sunday looks pretty dry, a high of 94. And then next week, I think most of us are very dry. I don't think the odds of rain are very high at all next week. So we're going to see that heat index value climb dangerously high. I mean, look at your high temperatures next week. 95 Monday, 97 Tuesday, 99 on Wednesday, 98 Thursday, and 97 Friday. So all throughout next week, we're going to be in a dangerous stretch of heat with highs in the mid to upper 90s, a heat index between 105 and 110. And that's why we have that weather impact alert all next week, because we are talking about some dangerous heat. Yeah, we do see this kind of heat every summer. We're in Memphis, we're used to it, but even when it's this hot, it can still be dangerous. So that's why we want to give you that early heads up. I don't want to scare you or anything, but I do have to let you know that it is looking dangerously hot next week, and without any rain to cool us down, that could be a problem. Also, notice your overnight lows next week barely getting below 80. So we're not going to get much relief in the overnight hours either. That means your AC is going to be pumping constantly. Even in the overnight hours, it's really not going to cool down all that much. Here's what we're watching. There is an area of low pressure that's come in off the Gulf. And that has picked up some moisture from the Gulf and is moving inland. So this is what's going to increase our storm chances at least a little bit for the next several days. This is for Saturday as we watch the hour-by-hour radar. That zone of low pressure starts to come further inland. It kicks up some moisture, and that could help a couple of thunderstorms to develop Friday or Saturday. Notice most of the storms that develop are in North Mississippi. So if you're south of I-40, I think you have the better chance to see a quick pop-up thunderstorm, but they won't happen everywhere. Most of Saturday will probably be dry, but there could be a storm or two that does develop, and then those will fizzle out by Saturday night. Here's a look at your rain chances here. Again, Friday and Saturday, slight chances for pop-up storms. Most areas are dry, but as we've seen, those pop-up storms can get you. Next week, rain chances really come down. A slight chance of a quick sprinkle, but I think most of us are just very hot and very dry into next week. Just a reminder, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, but we saw it yesterday with that pop-up summer storm. These storms can develop fast. We go from sunshine to storms in 10 minutes. They usually don't last very long unless they just park over one neighborhood like they did yesterday. But make sure you're watching the radar, especially Friday and Saturday. I think those are our best chances to see some isolated pop-up storms. Just be prepared to head inside if you hear thunder. I wouldn't cancel any plans. I don't think the rain is going to be that widespread, but some neighborhoods will probably see a downpour that you might need to head inside for, at least for a couple of minutes. Rain totals for the next 7 days, very low, less than an inch, probably less than a half an inch here through next weekend. There's just not going to be much rain to talk about. As we look ahead to the weekend forecast, a mix of sun and clouds. Saturday, Sunday, still hot. Low 90s Saturday, mid 90s Sunday. Again, Saturday we'll watch for that chance of some of those pop-up storms. But by next week, any rain chance goes away. We have a zone of high pressure that's going to park right on top of us. High pressure keeps us dry, rain-free, but it also keeps us hot. As long as high pressure is right on top of us, we are going to stay very hot next week, and it's parked right on top of Memphis. So we are looking at a period of extreme heat as we go through next week. And I wish I could say there was some relief in sight, but there really isn't. Look at your temperature outlook. Temperatures very likely to be above the average of 92 throughout next week in the middle of the eastern half of the country, and that includes us right here in Memphis. So dangerous heat expected as we look ahead into next week. Highs could be near 100 degrees. Of course, the heat index even worse. We're going to have a lot of humidity that's going to build in here, feeling like 105 to 110 throughout next week. So again, not much relief on the way. Just remember your summer heat safety. The biggest thing is to stay hydrated. If you're going to be out for the weekend, even if you're at a pool, make sure you're staying hydrated. Drink water starting the night before so your body has some time to absorb some of that water. Be sure to take breaks inside in the air conditioning. Remember your kids and your pets. You don't want them outside for too long. You definitely don't want them in a back seat. Be sure to triple check the back seat. Also check in on your friends, family, and neighbors. Make sure they're doing okay. Make sure their AC is working okay. And be prepared to help someone out. If they might need to get to a cooling center, if you need to invite them to your home for a little bit, just be prepared to check in on people. It can really save a life, especially for those elderly folks that might have some trouble getting around. If their AC stops working, they could be in real trouble. So one phone call, one knock on a neighbor's door, a family member's door could really save a life. So just keep that in mind. Also remember heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Heat exhaustion is a lot more common. It can happen in anybody. You go outside, you think you can do a quick jog, heat exhaustion can catch up with you. That's when you might get a little dizzy, a little lightheaded, you get extremely thirsty, and you start sweating a lot. You could even get nauseous. That just means you've done a little bit too much, right? You need to head inside, find some shade, find some AC, and drink some water. Heat stroke is a lot more serious. That's when it starts to have more of a turn on your brain, neurological symptoms. So you start to get really confused. A lot of people that are having a heat stroke don't even realize it because they just don't know what's happening. They don't know where they are. They kind of get lethargic. They might even pass out. So that's when it becomes more of an issue for your friends and neighbors around you to check in on you. If you notice someone that's getting really lethargic, maybe passing out, a lot of times they're not sweating as much. Those symptoms are a heat stroke, and that is a very serious condition. And if you notice someone having a heat stroke, that's when you need to call 911. And that's going to be a big issue into next week, and that's why we have that weather impact alert. Just as a recap, this weekend, Friday and Saturday, slight chances for those pop-up thunderstorms. They're not going to happen everywhere. I would not cancel plans, but just be aware at any point a quick thunderstorm could pop up. 92 Saturday, 94 Sunday. That's as low as the temperature is going to be for a little bit. Next week, a weather impact alert, 5 days in a row of dangerous heat. 95 Monday, 97 Tuesday, 99 Wednesday, 98 Thursday, and 97 Friday. We expect sunshine and very little rain chance. We're not going to see those pop-up storms next week. It's going to stay very hot and very humid. Expect heat index values between 105 and 110. So again, take care of yourself, stay hydrated, and check in on your friends and neighbors. Looks like we're going to have a pretty dangerous stretch of weather coming up. Of course, we have updates all the time right here on ABC24 Plus. You can stream us on Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV. Wherever you watch things like Netflix, Hulu, we have an app too. Just download it and search us. We are streaming 24/7 with live and local content, weather forecasts, sports, podcasts. Everything you need is right there. You can also watch us on the ABC24 app for your phone. Just search us in your App Store or Google Play. Again, really important to stay cool and stay safe. Drink plenty of water going into next week. And of course, we'll be here with you to give you the latest updates and information. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Trevor Birchett. Have a good day.
It was a ticking time bomb.
There was warnings for heavy rain, there was warnings for flash floods, but they didn't anticipate being as strong as it was, and then it just unfolded from there.
The waters rose.
Unfortunately, we got a real serious situation happening in Kerr County this morning.
There was so much screaming, they're banging on doors, getting people out, and people were trying to get their belongings, and we're like, there's no time, you need to go.
RVs being slammed up against trees and literally exploding. I saw children floating in the water begging for help that we could not reach. And that takes it out of you.
Lives changed forever.
I was born and raised here. Pretty bad.
From the first flash flood alert.
If you live anywhere near the river, if you have any kind of dealings with the river, stay away. Matter of fact, seek higher ground. This is a particularly dangerous situation.
To the courage that rose with the river. Stories of heartbreak and resilience.
I began to holler back to her, hey, I see you, we'll get you help.
And I pray, and I will be praying, and I hope you join me in prayer for these children in the Texas Hill Country.
All you can do is recover and keep moving and honor the ones who didn't make it, because that's what they would want.
Hearts and Heroes, flooding in the Texas Hill Country.
The Guadalupe River is beautiful, but it's also hazardous.
In the way those creeks converged, it was just a matter of time to what happened on the 4th of July happened.
Well, floodwaters rose and Texans answered with courage. You can watch Hearts and Heroes, a special on flooding in the Texas Hill Country, and you can also help out those who are still in need. You can stream for free starting Friday, right after our 6 p.m. newscast at 6:30 on ABC24 Plus and streaming throughout the weekend.